There is no way that this guy could have been that big of a problem that 3 police officers let him nonchalantly walk to the other side of his vehicle, and even if he was grabbing a knife, one officer decided to take out his gun and shoot 7 times. You're not trying to detain somebody, you're shooting 7 times, you're trying to kill him. And another part of the problem is that people are not standing for what's right because it doesn't affect them. That is ignorance 101. Where does that lead us? It's important that everybody understands that you have a voice against any type of criminal act or injustice in the world, regardless of what your race, religion, or sexual orientation is. I need to put that out there. We're going to talk about these sports boycotts today. We do tend to get controversial on here, and I figured that I'd talk about pretty much everything on here. And as hard as it is to talk about something like this, if you watch that video and it doesn't outrage you, well, there's something that needs to be said. You should not be blind to it. I'm not blind to it. Some people choose to be blind to it. I'm going to not say anything too controversial in this video because I don't think that it needs to be said. But today we're going to strictly talk about the NBA boycotts, and we're going to talk about what is basically happening. CBS Sports has a nice article here that kind of goes through the whole process of it. And I want people to understand something here is that regardless of where you stand, players should have a voice. Now, from a selfish fan standpoint, it sucks that they canceled the NBA because all we wanted to do was watch this great NBA playoffs. As of Wednesday night, the Lakers and Clippers were saying that they did not want the season to continue, and all other teams had stated that they were willing to go on. Thursday morning, a meeting happens, and from what we're told, the NBA playoffs are going to go on. Now, obviously, it's not going to happen today. There are reports that the NBA playoffs could continue as early as Friday morning. The idea here, guys, is justice and change. And I think that that's what people aren't understanding. The players aren't boycotting because they want to. They're boycotting because they notice what a lot of people have noticed, and that's the injustice. Racism has not gone away. And I want to make that clear, even though there have been some rules that have changed throughout the last 40 years, and it's not like what it was. Well, it kind of is to an extent. You look at everything that's happening, all of these innocent, whether they were guilty in their crime or not, that's up to you. But if you watch the Jacob Blake video, there's no way you can justify a guy being shot in the back 7 times. I'm sorry. If the guy was reaching for a knife, okay. But 7 times? A policeman's last resort is supposed to be to kill the person that they are arresting. And from what it seems like, all these videos, it's really hard to find any type of defense for the police. Now, I'm not categorizing all police in this matter. There are a lot of good cops, but unfortunately, there are quite a few bad ones as well. And again, there'll be the people that say tomato, tomato. There'll be the people that say, yes, priests are bad. Yes, we get that. But things like this are going to keep happening. But I think the idea of the boycotts is that, first off, it needs to stop, but crime is always going to happen, and that's part of the problem. The boycotts are for the justice of the people that have been affected by this. George Floyd is no longer alive. Jacob Blake is alive, but he's paralyzed, so his life will never be the same again because he was shot 7 times. Now, Jacob Blake and the 3 officers, and maybe some bystanders, are the only ones that knew what actually happened. From what we know, he was breaking up a fight. He wasn't even guilty. Maybe the video said police were telling him to get down. Now, obviously, a lot of people, the defense will be get down, right? Okay, I understand that. But even if he was going to his vehicle, he was not trying to, it's very difficult to break this down. So I'm going to not get too controversial because I think that it's definitely an important topic and everybody will have their own opinion on it. But I'm going to talk about the boycott specifically. The NBA and its players, coaches, and owners have taken myriad measures to make clear their support for the Black Lives Matter movement while standing against the racial injustice and police brutality. In the wake of a black man named Jacob Blake being shot 7 times in the back in Wisconsin on Sunday, Bucks players collectively decided to take the league's most extreme action yet by not taking the court for their game against the Magic. The Bucks did not take their court for the game against the Magic. From what happened, we believe that the Magic were out ready to shoot and play, and the Bucks never came out, and the Bucks were the one to get this boycott underway. And of course, all the other NBA teams of the night followed. There was no NBA basketball. All games were on strike. The WNBA was slated to go on. That was also put on strike. Two MLB games last night. The Brewers, respectively, because the incident had happened in Wisconsin. And today, all NHL games have been canceled as well. From what I'm told, this was news that was just made apparent. But the NBA does plan to resume their season. But regardless, let's continue here. It said shortly after the NBA released a statement that all 3 of Wednesday's games were postponed, and so began a series of protests across sports. The WNBA canceled its full slate of games. 3 MLB games were postponed as well. Question 2, were other teams aware of the Bucks' plan? No, and that reportedly didn't sit well with a portion of players, which led to at least 2 different responses. Bucks veteran Kyle Korver apologized for his team's decision to take abrupt action without informing everyone else of their plan. I think that, I'm not quite sure from the way Kyle Korver explains it, the Bucks had actually been planning this, but they made no mention of it to the NBA, to the other NBA teams. Sources also say Korver apologized for the way the Bucks made the decision to not play without alerting teams. The element has clearly frustrated teams around the league, and Korver made the choice to address it. Obviously, when they make that decision to protest, I have to give the NBA a lot of credit. Their players and everybody in the NBA are such a great community when they unite with each other, and it's just so powerful. And again, I state this again, from a selfish standpoint, all I wanted to do was sit and watch the playoffs, but from a civilized human being standpoint, whether you hate it or not, I have to commend all these players for sticking together. That's the type of unity that I think that we need more of in this world. And again, some people are going to completely... Another thing too is, I do not like the people that say don't pay them, because the NBA players have more leverage than anybody. Professional athletes have more leverage than anybody. So for someone to sit here and say something ignorant like that, don't pay them. LeBron James' toilet paper is $5 million itself. LeBron doesn't care about $5-10 million. LeBron's doing quite well, and the other NBA players as well. So where us normal human being citizens may not be able to say, stick it, I'm not coming to work, these professional athletes have that leverage. And I think Adam Silver, of all commissioners, is... A lot of people might disagree with this. I have to give Silver credit because I think that he understands the players' pain. And Adam Silver has a very close connection with the NBA players. And I think that the NBA community, a lot of people will crap on the community, and I can't stand that. But the community in its bubble, no pun intended, is very close-knit with each other to an extent. And that's where I give the credit to. On the other hand, Celtics forward Jaylen Brown stood by the Bucks in their decision, didn't feel they owed anyone an apology. Adrian, this was him last night, Adrian Wojnarowski. As some in tonight's meeting wanted to hear Bucks' explanation for making an abrupt decision, independent of the rest of the teams, Boston's Jaylen Brown said the Bucks didn't need to explain themselves and he supported what they did today. How was the decision to resume playing reached? The players went inside the bubble met Wednesday night, first with coaches invited to attend and then on their own. Obviously, during these initial meetings, it was reported that the Lakers and Clippers were in favor of canceling the rest of the season while the other 11 teams voted to resume playing. I think it also speaks volume that the 2 teams, or one of these 2, would be favored to win the NBA championship this year. I think that it speaks volumes that the 2 teams most likely to win the championship are voting to cancel it all. And I think that should speak volumes as well. Someone tweeted out, every team besides the Lakers and Clippers voted to continue playing. LeBron said in a meeting he wanted owners to be more involved and to take action. Multiple reports indicated LeBron was particularly firm in his desire to shut down the season, citing he didn't believe team owners were doing enough. And Brad Turner of the LA Times reported that Kawhi Leonard was on LeBron's side and being adamant about canceling the playoffs. Brad Turner tweets last night, they both spoke at the players' meeting, and they both did not want to play the rest of the playoffs, and they want to change. And it states that the players will have another meeting, which is scheduled for today at 11 a.m. That meeting happened. Players will continue talking late into Wednesday night. I'm sure they were up all night talking about everything. The main source of frustration was players not being on the same page when emotions running high at the time went on. They agreed to sleep on it with the hope that they'd be able to reconvene Thursday morning. Indeed, that meeting Thursday morning led to a decision to resume playing. Obviously, with tensions high Wednesday night, there are so many faces and so many opinions about what the decision is that they're going to make. in terms of resuming the league. And a lot of players probably felt the pain but wanted to keep playing, and then there's the ones that didn't, and that's where the turbulence hits, is from that standpoint. What has been the response from team owners? LeBron said it's a very important issue. Several owners and teams released statements in support of the players' decision not to play, but the players wanted action from, let's face it, the really rich people in control of their teams who have the financial means and leverage to effect meaningful change. To the end, the Board of Government met independent players on Thursday, and Adrian reported that the BOG and players will come together for a meeting later on Thursday to take actions moving forward. That's today. What effects have the boycotts had so far? But before leaving the locker room, Bucks player reportedly spent significant time on the phone Wednesday with the Wisconsin lieutenant governor, which led them to calling a special session of the state legislature urging lawmakers to vote on a legislative package that includes police reform. Police reform is something that definitely needs to happen. And despite our pleas for change, it hasn't happened. That's one of the quotes Giannis said in his little speech yesterday. It's, regardless of what you think about this, I have to command respect to the NBA players for standing by one another. I think the biggest message you could make is not playing. You have the Black Lives Matter on the court, you give the players their jerseys, you do all this and that, and then now they're not playing. So the worst thing that could possibly happen would be the players not playing. Now, another thing someone mentioned, if we can have a little bit of jokes on this, somebody mentioned, well, Nick, what about, how about the Magic? He was like, well, the Magic just want to go home and see their family because they probably wanted to play because they knew that Game 5 was going to be their last game, and it damn sure was. And again, once the team's eliminated from the playoff, they immediately leave the bubble, and they're away from that. Now, for teams that are, I was also told this by one of my coworkers, for teams that are expected to make a deep run, teams that are advancing to the second round, so on and so forth, I think they give their family the opportunity to come to the bubble, but obviously they have to be quarantined with them as well. And again, of course, the teams are expected to win the title. It would be very difficult to go. I know there's a lot of probably Army soldiers and moms out there, but it would be very difficult to go a few months without seeing your family, immediate family, especially when you live with them constantly. So everybody has their own opinions on this. But from what we're expected, that the NBA could come back as early as Friday. Hopefully everything will come back and resume. But again, I still think that players need to continue to voice their frustrations. And the people that don't understand it need to do a little bit more research into what the actual problem is. But as far as everything else goes, I hope everybody stays safe. I didn't want to do too long of a video today. No pictures, none of that. It's just me shooting it straight up. And I appreciate everybody for watching as always.